dogs. These things. See that? That's a dog. Can I pet that dog? No. What about this? Is this a dog? If you thought it was a hippo or some kind of Phil Tippett nightmare creature, you'd be wrong, idiot. This is a dog, and not just any dog. This is the American dog, a once promising star in the world of animation now lost to time. In reality, American Dog is dead, though his spirit does live on in another dog voiced by John Travolta. Alright, I got lost a little bit in the intro, but today we're talking about American Dog, a canceled Disney film that has been burned into my brain for literally as long as I can remember. American Dog was one of my first interactions with lost media, and it is a really interesting and somewhat confusing story. That's lost media for you though. American Dog was the original version of Bolt, starring John Travolta. Remember Bolt? It was a cute little movie. Originally, though, it was going to be a lot less cute and a lot more fucking awesome. Holy shit, why would they throw this movie away? Look at that. Look at this. That's a gorilla with knives in his toes. Holy shit, dude. This dog, this American dog, still looks like he has a tumor on his face, but goddamn, the rest of the movie looks pretty awesome. I can't lie. American Dog was thought up by Chris Sanders, an incredibly accomplished man in the world of animation, best known for coming up with Lilo and Stitch. But Lilo and Stitch is only the tip of the iceberg with this guy. He has done so much in so many areas of animation, it's astounding. After the success of Lilo and Stitch, Chris Sanders began working on American Dog for Disney. Jim Hill Media broke down the story in September of 2006, which is one of the main assets we have in kind of uncovering the story of this film. American Dog is the story of Henry, a dog who stars in a popular television series, where each week this Hollywood hound has all sorts of James Bond-like adventures, but Henry always manages to come through unscathed, thanks to his TV show's carefully written scripts as well as his dedicated stunt team. But one night during an on-location shoot, one stunt goes horribly wrong. Henry gets knocked out, and when he finally comes to, this diminutive dog, finds himself on a moving train, thousands of miles away from Tinseltown in the middle of America. After years of being treated like a celebrity, being waited on hand and foot, Henry doesn't quite know how to get along in the real world, and how to interact with real people. Mind you, not everyone that Henry encounters when he's stranded way out in middle America could be called normal. Take, for example, that oversized radioactive rabbit, or that one-eyed cat with the eye patch. As it turns out, the rabbit and the cat have access to a classic old car, and Henry cons these two into driving him back out to Hollywood, where this dog can resume his plush celebrity lifestyle. That is, of course, if Henry can actually manage to stay inside the car, or manage to survive the drive back to Tinseltown. Wow, what a horrible way to lay out your story with big breaks in between the actual description of it. But I thought reading it verbatim would give you a real picture of the disjointed nature this film would find itself in during production. Also, I didn't want to write it all down, so there's that too. But I'll be honest, as far as a pitch goes, that's not all that bad. Except, remember that cat lady from before that we were talking about? Yeah, that's a character named Joe Knight, a waitress in Vegas who Henry the dog would come across at some point in the film. And look, I know it's a little risque, but if Roger Rabbit can have a character that's similarly themed, I guess is the term that's ad-friendly that we'll use here, you could probably get away with this in a Disney film if it was handled carefully. And I think Chris Sanders would have handled it in a way that wasn't too uncomfortable for audiences. But unfortunately for you Catgirl fans out there, that's kind of where the talk on that character ends, so my apologies. We're moving on to Gorilla Chair talk, which, yes, Gorilla Chair talk. This is one of the problems with lost media that I wanted to point out, is that we don't actually know if this was going to be an actual gorilla, or if at some point it was reworked into just a gorilla-shaped chair. But that's lost media for you, I guess. You can't tell a gorilla from a gorilla-shaped chair without a full release. But all of this is just to kind of paint the picture that this was going to be a weird movie, and we really don't know all that much about it. Well, except for one aspect. This This is Ruthie right here, a character that looks like she was lifted right out of Psychonauts. And design-wise, I love Ruthie. In fact, I like just about every character design in American Dog, except for the titular American dog, Henry, who I still think looks exactly like a hippo and not at all like a dog. I'm not an artist though, and I haven't seen many dogs in my days, so I've seen less hippos. So what does that tell you? Anyways, Ruthie's design, I think, is pretty dang good. But where she becomes problematic is with her actual character description. Now, Ruthie is a zombie Girl Scout serial killer, which sounds like the plot of a terrible webcomic. Now, American Dog was supposed to be very offbeat and unconventional for Disney, and that should be no surprise since it was coming from the guy that made Lilo and Stitch, a very unconventional and successful Disney film. But after reading through what this movie was supposed to be originally, I can totally see why this never saw the light of day. In just the little bit of information we have on American Dog, I feel like there's way too much going on. As far as I can tell in my research, there's no straight man character, which the straight man, if you're not aware, isn't someone who's straight and also a man. It's the character in a film or TV show that is there to ask the questions the audience is curious about when it comes to setting a story in a very unconventional, weird world like the one in American Dog. We have a movie star dog, an eye patch wearing cat, a sexy cat lady waitress, a gorilla that may or may not be a chair and also throws knives, a bunch of weird stuff. Zombie, Girl Scout, sure, why not? Throw that in there too. Now that's a very big cast of unconventional, kooky, weird characters. There has to be someone, in my mind, that can kind of ground the audience into this world, and as far as I can tell, there isn't anyone like that. But that doesn't mean outright that this movie would not have worked. It's very unconventional, it's very strange, and frankly, that's what Disney was expecting from Chris Sanders, someone who had just come up with a very unconventional and successful film with Lilo and Stitch. And as you all know by now, American Dog was thrown out by Disney for being too surreal and too bold, which is basically a way of saying that this idea from Chris Sanders was just way too weird for Disney. And to Disney's credit, which is not something I say often, but to their credit, they did give Chris Sanders a chance to right the ship. The biggest hangups seem to be centered around the suspension of disbelief, which we just kind of talked about with the film's many strange characters, and of course, Disney execs didn't love the idea of having a zombie serial killer Girl Scout called Ruthie in a children's film. But in the end, Chris Sanders didn't want to change his vision for Disney, and he was taken off the project, and later he would jump ship and join DreamWorks, where he would play a massive role in both How to Train Your Dragon and The Croods. American Dog was then reworked into Bolt under the new leadership of Chris Williams and Byron Howard. Now, this whole situation with American Dog reminds me of the situation with Kingdom of the Sun, a Disney film that suffered from similar executive concerns that would later be reworked into The Emperor's New Groove. It's hard to say if American Dog would have come together into another surprise hit for Chris Sanders, but for better or worse, I think at the very least it would have been more memorable than what we got with Bolt. And now, I don't hate Bolt, I think it's a fine movie, but it really is safe and standard for what you would expect. There isn't a ton that has stuck into my head. But with American Dog, it's been stuck in my head for far longer than Bolt, which actually saw a full release. Maybe it's just the mystery of what could have been that has me and so many others fascinated by American Dog, and an unreleased movie with little information floating around about it tends to have an inflated mark of quality because the audience isn't actually watching the final product. They're getting little glimpses of what could have been and coming up with the story in their own heads. We can make educated guesses about the story and the characters, but at the end of the day, there is no American Dog. All that's left of this canceled film is what was transformed into Bolt, and a webcomic done by Chris Sanders that reused the eye patch wearing cat character from the film. What's really sad about all of this is we won't get to see one of the single sexiest character designs I have ever seen. And of course, I'm talking about Gorilla Chair. Jesus Christ, what could have been if only we had gotten Gorilla Chair in a movie? You live only in our dreams now, Gorilla Chair. For now.